Good evening to you, or good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you are from, whatever part of the world you are, whether you're watching this live or watching a recording. Eimear here. Welcome to another Fireside Chat. I think it's 49, brought to you by the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids. So just let me know where you're from. Welcome. So hi, Jules from Wyoming, and Julia from drizzly London. It's been cold here too, and just started to rain. And Lisa from Washington. Hi, Jamie from Ohio. Lovely to see you. And Stefan, I assume from Louth. Lovely. You're very, very welcome. And somebody from UTC 5 time zone. I have no idea where that is. And Ava from Belgium. Lovely. Monica, ciao. And Cameron from Farringdon. Lovely to see you. And Bremerton. Lovely. Kane from London again, Atlanta, Georgia. Hi, Lexi from Colorado. Mountain snows, oh my goodness. And it's only September, well, the last day of September. And hi, Helen from Derry. Lovely to see people from Northern Ireland. That's lovely. And York and Northamptonshire, Utah again. Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Sue from Northamptonshire. And Shelley from South Carolina, I think. Greer, lovely. I see you don't want to meet you from Texas nowadays. Okay, well, everybody's welcome here. I don't know how to pronounce your name, Rulu something. Anyway, but you're very, very welcome. Texas or no. And Cumbria, lovely. Oklahoma. Great. So let me introduce my guest. We're going to Ireland today. And I'd like to introduce to Alun Hoskins. So Alun, you're so welcome.
Thank you, Eimear. It's nice to see you. And hi, everybody else who's out there.
And of course, judging by your accent, you're not Irish. So
no, no, I'm not. No, I'm here because I was marrying an Irish girl, and I thought I'd better come back. She was working in England, Julie, my wife. But no, I was born and bred in the south of England. But I'm here. I don't know which order to put all this in, really. But so I was born and bred and grew up in the south of England, and ended up here. My background is a little bit mixed, actually, which I'll come to a bit later on. And I had some more information about how mixed up it was this week, actually. DNA testing is a wonderful thing, for ethnicity. It changes every 6 months. I'm not quite sure what that means, but I think it's as the testing improves, we've refined it, and we've done this. I'm not from the moon. That's the only thing I know. But nearly. But so. Yeah, hi. It's you talk about the weather there. It's pelting down out here. Has been all day. I suppose I should say where I am, really, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Ballina, not to be confused. This is Little Ballina, which is in North Tipperary. It's on the border with County Clare. We're about 500 meters, 600 yards inside Tipperary. On the other side of the bridge is Killaloe, which most people know about. We're about, that's in County Clare, we're about, in a straight line, we're about 20 kilometres above Limerick city. So it's all border country here. But it's nice here. There's the River Shannon is between where I am here in Ballina and Killaloe on the other side. Halfway across the river, which I can see that way, is the border. And there's a 17th century, it's a 17th or 18th century bridge down in the town. So it's a 13-arch stone bridge which joins the two towns. You probably know it.
Yes.
It's a traffic nightmare sometimes, but they're going to build a new bridge somewhere. But we've got the Arrow Mountain range that way. They're not high mountains, it's about 460 meters high. There's a mountain behind us, Tantina. The Clare Hills are that way, which we look out onto. And I believe the hill we can see is the highest point in the whole of County Clare. The Shannon down in the middle, and about a kilometre or less up that way is Loch Derg.
Yes.
This being Ireland, not to be confused with another Loch Derg. As we would say, this is the proper Loch Derg. But it's a good spot. It's a historic spot here as well. The other side, this area being famous for Brian Boru, who was the last High King of Ireland. When was he? He was 941 to 10,014, something like that. But if we look out, we go to the end of our road here. I'm in a complex of houses, and we look left. We can see a clump of trees on the other side of the river, which is Brian Boru's fort, as was. There's remains there. Yeah, it's a circle of trees. You can find it all on Google, on the maps, and this was his home place. So technically, this little place here was once technically the capital of Ireland, I suppose. Population on our side of the bridge is about 2,600 people. On the Killaloe side, 1,500. So
Okay.
that's it, really. It's a nice place to live, albeit wet.
And you also come from a very nice place, Lewis.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm actually from Hastings, which is down in the. I worked in Lewis for a while, in Sussex, down on the south coast. It is a nice part of the world, right down in the southeast. Again, famous. It's all fighting, isn't it? Hastings, the Battle of Hastings in 1066. You can't get away from it there. But yeah, I grew up there. My mother was, I mean, she died in 2012. She was 88. She was a Welsh lady. She was a coal miner's daughter from the South Wales coal valleys. My father was a London boy, and I think they met during or just after the Second World War. And I believe they lived in London, because when Mum was a teenager, I think I never asked questions about the family until she's gone, which is ridiculous, I know. At some stage, they moved across from Wales to the east side of England, and London, I think they ended up in. Mum spent her war in London. I've discovered that my London father, he comes from an East End family of Londoners, but I've discovered doing the research we can do now that from his grandmother back, they were Scottish. So there's a bit of Scot in there as well. And my Welsh mother's mother was born in Argentina, right? And had a French maiden name. So it's picked up, because when people say, well, where do you come from? Where are you from? I say, well, I'm from there. But I used to just say, oh, well, I'm just a happy mongrel, really.
Oh, yeah.
And happy mongrel is in fact incorporated into my email address. So it's in there somewhere. But so yeah, a bit of a mix, really. But although I was born and I grew up in England, I never felt English, whatever that is. And I kind of know why now. My mother was a strong influence in the family, I suppose. I just have one brother who's 10 years older than me. So I effectively grew up as an only child. A long time ago. I'm 64 now. So it's a long time ago. But a lot of things are starting to make sense. And they fit in with where I am now talking to you, actually, and being part of the order. A lot of things make sense. My mother, it's not all going to be about my mother, but I realized what an influence she was. She wasn't an educated woman. She was denied an education for reasons which I won't go in here. But I realized she was quite wise, actually. She was quite a wise lady. She knew things that I think she must have kept suppressed back in those days when she moved to the city in England. Come to England, none of that Welsh nonsense here, you know. And very occasionally she'd come up with some Welsh words as well. But that was all suppressed, I suppose. It just wasn't a done thing. Different times, you know. But yeah, Hastings is where I grew up, and at the time I had no notions of the order of bards, ovates and druids coming out of Lewis, which was 25, 30 miles away from where I've lived and worked. I worked just around the corner from, you know, where OBOD sort of emanated from, you know, or administratively emanated from anyway, you know. So yeah, what did you ask me? I can't remember.
I just mentioned about Lewis that you.
Oh yes, Lewis, fabulous town, Lewis. It's a nice. Lewis, you must know it, yeah. So there's a mystery. I bought that ring I bought in Lewis years ago. It's a great stuff. It's a magical town, actually. There's things. It's great. As is this country.
It's beautiful. I always said that if I had to live in England, I'd live in Somerset. That's because of all my trips to Glastonbury. And then I went to Lewis, and I thought, and I was there. When was it? It was 2018. Yeah, yes. During the big freeze, I was actually stuck in the UK, and luckily I was with Philip and Stephanie for 5 days. And you know how Lewis is like in a bowl. And looking up, you see all the snow. It was exquisite, and the town itself was lovely, with beautiful restaurants and coffee shops and the Sussex Downs. I thought, you know, I think I could live there because it's not far from the sea.
You need to be near the top, because houses down the bottom of the dip, they tend to flood. I don't know. I imagine they've sorted it out, but I know a few years back, what year was there was a lot of flooding, and you could see there's a very good brewery there actually called Harvey's. An old-fashioned brewery. I think they've been there since 1700 and something. I'm not sure, but they had flooding one year in the big flood, and you could go in there and buy beer. And the mark was up here, showing where the water level rose. It was terrifying. Wow. But yeah, Lewis is a nice town. It's I believe, I don't know, I'm sure Philip would know this. Somebody once told me that there are a lot of energy lines that cross at Lewis. They meet and cross at Lewis. I've never looked at into that, but yeah, it's an interesting place. Interesting.
Beautiful. It's interesting. Hannah Semple says, my father's Scottish. I was born in England, but Wales is where I feel at home. And then Healing Art, I don't know your name, says, if I could live anywhere, it would be near Silbury Hill. It's interesting where people feel at home. I mean, I've been born here and I belong here. I'm not in the town. I never felt I belonged to the town where I was born, but I belong here in Kilkenny. Yeah. Howard, my husband, his mother was Scottish and his father was Irish, and he was a Campbell, but that was his Irish name. His mother was from Glasgow, and he was born in Wales and lived in many towns in England and never felt English. No. And when he lived in Scotland, they thought he was English, even though he had a Scottish name. And then when he came to Ireland, they thought he was Scottish. But the one place he did feel at home was here in Ireland. So it's really interesting how people find. I was talking to an Indian friend who's traveled and lived all over the world and came to Ireland and said, this is where I belong.
Amazing, isn't it? Yeah. It's funny because, as I say, even as a child, to a certain extent, as you're told when you're a child, I was quite good at that then. I was then anyway. I liked where I lived and I was happy where I lived. And there was always something which I couldn't put it into words. And I probably still can't actually. If we went to Cornwall or Wales or Scotland, I didn't come to Ireland for the first time until about 2000 because of life events. I'll probably talk about that a bit later. But immediately when I went to these places, something happened inside. There was a sort of electricity is too strong a word for it. There was something. I just felt different, and I thought, oh, it sounds different, it smells different. You know, there was something different about it, and I still get that to this day. And when I came over here with Julie. I say that's my wife. We moved over here full time in 2008. I'd started coming over from 2001. Came over here 2008 full time. Took me about 20 minutes, half an hour to fully settle in. And
that long?
That long, yeah. It took me longer than I thought. And it's usually by the time you get to passport control, you know. But I just felt straight at home, and I've never looked back. And they always say, is there some sort of genetic memory? I don't know what it is. Is there something in us? Which is kind of curious, actually, because it must be about 3 years ago, I just had a curiosity, because I don't know an awful lot about my family. There's, like every family, the sort of things probably didn't get talked about, you know, and not my place to ask and all this sort of thing. And I wasn't a questioning child. I just accepted, you know. They had said to me, well, the sky is pink today, or the sky is green. I'd say, oh, yeah, okay. I can't see it, but I'll take your word for it, you know. And that's how I used to be, not anymore. I had a DNA test sample sent off and done with one of the reputable firms, and I got the results back, and I've just had the latest one back this week, which is now coming back with 60% Welsh. I can see the sense in that. 32%, so it's 59% Welsh, I'm exaggerating, 59%, 32% Scot. There's a bit of Irish in there. There's, I don't know where that one's from. There's Norwegian, and I suppose that's the Scandinavian, it's the islands.
Yeah.
And and England and Northern Germanic, it says, but it doesn't give a percentage for that one. So it might answer a lot of things. So I'm just checking. I have a dog in here with me. He's all right. He's just moved away.
It's interesting. There's a number of people here talking about either would love to find a home, haven't found that place they call home. Gabriella says home. She's been in many places, but home is where you feel loved.
Absolutely.
That's so true. And then Jennifer said she'd a dream about a bookstore that she later saw in a photo from Glastonbury, but had never been there. And it felt like going to see if I feel like going to see if I experience a deja vu feeling. That's an interesting one, Jennifer.
Yes.
And Healing Art says, I like cold weather, so I'm probably more Scot than English.
Well, I love the rain. I know this sounds weird. As a weird child, I used to say to him, you know, can I go out for a walk in the rain? Or go on then. I love the rain. I still do. I love the rain. If the sun bothers me, the sun bothers me. I love the rain. I guess I'm not going to get over that one. Sorry.
It's wonderful. And then Poppy and I think belonging has to do with the fact that we have people we love and who love us around. Love is what creates a sense of belonging. Well, it certainly is. And there's that sense of belonging in a community.
Yes.
And then there's also that sense of coming into a place and saying, I belong in this land. I don't, and without just, there's a different sense of belonging.
Yes.
And I think that's always a fascinating, that we need community, that sense of love to feel that we belong. And then there's that other piece, like I belong on the land. I belong in the landscape here.
Yes. Yes. I feel I'm always a bit loath to use cliches, but cliches are cliches for pretty good reason. But I do feel connected here, and I can just go out there and just walk around. I don't even have to see anybody necessarily. I realize I'm probably quite good at living in the now, although I used to be a big worrier about the future. But I live for the now, and I'm happy going out there talking to. I do talk to trees. I'll tell you why as well. I talk to trees. I talk to every animals, and I'm happy with my surroundings, and these surroundings just seem to connect. This isn't some crazy romantic. Oh, it does. I can't, and it's hard to put into words. I do feel connected here. This is home. And is there some ancient memory? I don't know, but
sometimes these things don't have words. They're pre-verbal. It's that Gabrielle says, maybe you feel mostly loved by your land. I do, Eimear, or I do, Gabriella. Maybe it's the same, that somehow something clicks. It's a bit like you meet somebody for the first time. Yes. You've never met them, and somehow it's like, I've known you all my life, and you go, well, how could I? Is it a past life remembering, or is it somehow a lovely connection of your energies, that little chemistry piece?
I think the thing is not to get too hung up about it. Just accept it. I used to think, I wonder why this is that, and I think, well, actually, it doesn't matter why. It just is. That's just how it is. I used to think, I wonder why I feel so at home here, like I really come home, but don't worry about why. It just is.
Exactly.
I feel very lucky and very privileged to be here, I have to say. And I'm fortunate I've added Irish citizenship to the mix now as well. So yes. This is a great country. It's a great country. We're part of the world's a good place. I know the world has a lot of trouble right now, but most people are really good. Most people they just want to get on with their lives and live in. I think most people do just want to live in peace with each other. We're going on to something different now, but
I think they do. And it's interesting. A number of people are saying, I feel loved by my family, but still don't feel at home. Others have said, I have never felt loved, but that the OBOD course has helped me. This is from Healing Art.
Yes.
OBOD course has helped me to learn to actually love myself. And I think that's really, really important. I think when you can do that, that can do a lot of healing for the lack of love going back. And then go on.
No, I think I very simple working class upbringing, but I definitely there wasn't a lot of material wealth in the house, but there was an immense amount of family love, I suppose, and I know I'm very lucky in that as well. Very simple. I used to not appreciate it at the time. I suppose that's normal, and I wasn't rebellious as a teenager, but I probably took a lot of things for granted, and I was, why can't we do this? He does that. But I know I was loved. My dad was he had very tough upbringing in London. The most I ever did with my father, but he died in 1990 actually. He had a very hard upbringing. He had a passion for dog biscuits. This is the strange thing. The dried biscuits you put in with dogs? He always liked those. And I asked him one day why, and he said, well, when I was out with my kid brother, and that was my uncle, obviously, he said we were so hungry, we'd pinch them from the front of the pet shop and run away and eat them. He said, I still like a charcoal biscuit, which is just weird. But, and there's me once telling him, you know nothing about real life. I was a horrible teenager sometimes. But most I ever got from my father when I left home, he shook my hand and said, good luck, because it wouldn't be right to give me a hug. They don't do it. But I know he loved me. I know he loved me in his own way, but he wouldn't dare show it. I was very lucky. So, but I took it for granted. But I know I'm very lucky. So,
Great. So what brought you to druidry?
Well, that's a good question. Within it, there's a sort of a journey that you have life events that change life as you sort of, kind of sounds a bit Star Trek, life as we know it. No, life changes from what you think it's going to be. And you probably think you're on your own in this situation. You find in my case, it was a breakdown of a marriage.
Okay.
And I was Mr. Safe, steady, not extravagant, still not hopefully, but Mr. Safe, Mr. Steady. Right, we'll do this and we'll plan this and we'll plan that. And I got married probably too young, and then one day. There was the way I remember, it was the day after 9/11 actually. So I remember the date. I got that. There's something I need to tell you, and I'm seeing somebody else, and it just went from there. Happens to a lot of people, but at that time in life, it was only happening to me, and I thought, well, there's no point. What's life all about? There's nothing to do now. This is it. It happens a lot, and there'll be people watching who know it. It's happened to them. It's happened to other people, and I went right downhill. Which affected me at work. It affected me personally. I found out who my true friends were. I will get to your answer in a minute. I found out who my true friends were, people who I thought weren't, possibly because they didn't know how to handle it. I ended up having a breakdown at work, which that only ever happens to other people, that sort of thing. You know, it was that, you know, I'm talking now 2001, it would be about 2001, 2002, this finally went, and I was forced to stop. I was just gone. I was washed out, and good support from a lot of good friends, and everything I knew about life, how life in my head should be, was going to be, just gone.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people can relate to this. I couldn't see a future, and I don't mind. I can say it now. At one point, I was suicidal. I was going to say that, and I actually thought, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And I won't go into any detail, but I was going to go out in the car and I was going to put it into a tree and I was going to do all this. And I had a little dog with me, Tilly the dog. She's no longer with us now. And she was on the back seat. I had Tilly tied on the back seat. And I was speeding through the countryside one morning. I thought, right, I can do this. Middle of the night. I don't know whatever it was. And I looked in the mirror and there's this little terrier on the back seat like this looking at me. And she's staring at me in the mirror, and straight away a voice in my head said, I can't do this to you. What have you ever done? So I slowed down, turned around, went back home, and that was like throwing a switch. I started to get a grip. That sounds a bit flippant. I don't mean that, but I started to see things slightly differently. And I started thinking to myself, God, how have all these people put up with me all this time? I've been a complete pain in the arse, you know. What are they? But they stuck with me. And just that same day, my best friend, who is still my best friend, he's back in the UK from school. I had many a tear with him, and he was pretty good. He put up with it. I got him out of bed, and his wife and family, they were very good to me, actually. And I remember saying to him once, his name's Peter. I said, Peter, why the hell has this happened to me? And he literally grabbed me. He said, why not you? He said, it happens to everybody. Potentially it can happen. I said, I know what you're looking at. It all looks rosy, doesn't it? He said, well, it isn't. He said, and I'm only doing this to you because I love you. And he never used words like that either, you know. And he'd be embarrassed if I told anybody, so I won't tell anyone. But he, and I sort of sat down, and then I went home and I was angry, and I thought, nope, I'm going to go and the bit I've just told you about. And then I suddenly snapped out of it. I'd had the benefit of had a bit of counselling as well, which is really worth doing.
Yeah.
No, I don't do silly nonsense. That's what I thought. It works. So I had this fairly quick car, and I took it to the garage next day, and I said, buy it from me, take it. And they said, well, I said, just take it. I said, I'll take that old Fiat Panda there, so because it was safe, you know. And I did that, and then I started to see the world a bit differently. And I was reflecting, and my good friends had stuck by me. And I'd gone through, in my head, the deepest, darkest, most miserable time. I lost about 2 stone in weight as well. I must have been such a pain to be with. And I started thinking a bit differently, and I started accepting the help that these people were offering me. And I don't know if somebody suggested it or whether my brain was saying, well, there's all these things you're going to do one day. One day's now. Because if you'd have gone through it last night, you wouldn't be having this conversation with yourself. And it kind of went like that. And I started looking in things, and I've always been interested in mythology. I've always been interested in crystals and crystal healing. I must do that one day. And I've always been interested in this, that, and that. And with the most unlikely friend and colleague of mine, I had this conversation with a great, big, hairy monster of a guy. He said, oh, I'm interested in aura reading. So I said, oh, okay, then. There's a course in wherever. And we went and did that. And that was the start of the journey. He's now a Buddhist, would you believe?
Okay.
He's gone from a cynic to a Buddhist. It's great. And a very nice guy, big, gentle giant. I think he was 12 pounds when he was born or something. Huge guy.
Wow. Okay.
His mother we felt sorry for. But he became a good friend, and we went on these various things. And I started looking, I said, and then my love of nature kicked in, because I'd had this, I'll have to tell you about that. So that was kicked in from my, as I thought, my mother, who knew nothing, bless her. And we started exploring things, and I was just literally searching on the internet. That's what it was. And I came across Druidcast when I can't remember what the keywords were that I searched. Probably pagan, druids. I think it probably started with nature, spirituality, something like that. And up popped Druidcast, and I thought, well, what's this then? And there's Dave the Bard. And I started from there. It went from there, and I did a little bit more investigating, and I thought, oh, I'll send off this form. And paperwork started to arrive, and the GWERS for the people doing the studies. This was quite a few years after everything had settled down in my life. I've missed a big chunk out in the middle because I met my wife in the meantime. When I stopped feeling sorry for myself, an ex-colleague of mine who was trying to matchmake me with somebody. No, I'm not. And I said, I saw this. And I phoned her up one day, and I said, oh, it's me, And bless her, she was still there. She was still willing to give it a go, despite my. And we got married in 2010, and I find myself here now. She's a Galway girl. Never been happier in my life. Never. And I've found what I'm talking to people from the Druid order here. It's gone on. I was going to do. I was always interested in dowsing. The dowsing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've got I have the dowsing rods here. The rods, and I just thought, well, let's try that once. And I did another course of a day with this, and crystal healing crept in, and I complained that they wanted a volunteer. I'm 6 and 7, so I will go back to where I am. And crystal healing, if you need such a thing, was proven to me, because this lovely old gent was talking about crystals and the power of crystals, and he said, I need a volunteer. So the new me jumped up, and I was there. And I lay on this couch he had in front of a dozen people, and I said, I have terrible backache. And he said, oh, really? Yeah. I said, oh, yeah, shocking backache. And he's going across he wasn't touching me at all, and with this crystal across my leg. And he said, what about your left leg? Oh, no, it's my backache. I said, it's my back. No, he said, there's something wrong with there was something wrong with your left leg, he said. And of course, so that'll be the deep vein thrombosis I had, but it's gone now, Wow. So I thought, well, this is good. This is good. So we have a crystal as well. But so that's, to answer your question in its simplest form, that's how I started exploring things. If just as an aside, if there's a message for people here, I'm not telling people what's what and what isn't right. I was at my lowest ebb in life. I could see no way through it. I could see, well, my life's finished now. As I say, I'm 64 now, so we're going back to 2001. It kicked off around about then. Oh, well, that's it. I've had my life. I've had a go. And I must have been such a pain. I was so sorry for myself, and I was very upset. But with accepting the help of people, when I was ready, and I couldn't do that when the time was right. I'd say there's only one wrong piece of advice I got from somebody, and when they actually said to me, Alan, this happens to a lot of people. 2 years has gone now, or whatever it is. I think it was 2 years. He said, you should be out of this now, and you should be moving on. And then somebody else immediately said, no, you move on when you are ready.
Exactly.
You can't control it, because if you can control it, you wouldn't have been in this mess in the first place. It happens to a lot of people. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Don't give up, because when you're in the depths of this, it was like a dark pit. That's the only way I can describe it. Your rational mind, as people see it, goes out of the window. And you can't, you could give people a friendship, you can give people advice. Generally, you can't, you've got to experience it to understand it, I think. So I would just say, if there's anybody out there who is in that position, never give up. Never give up. If it looks absolutely and utterly hopeless, do not give up, because there's always a chance. And if it could work out very well. For me, it did. And bizarrely, and perhaps a bit perversely, having the rug pulled out from under me like that, and everything I knew and believed in is gone, is probably the best thing that could have happened to me. Now, it's a hard way to do it, but I was probably in a bit of a rut in life, I guess. And I only started living really after that event.
That's not an unusual thing, that, you know, if you can, you know, chug along nicely and not be challenged, and then you need something, some adverse event. John Maddox says, true success is the measure of how high we bounce after we've hit the bottom.
Yes.
And you see, when you're in the pit, and there's a number of people talking about, you know, the depression they felt, or the darkness, and how they got through with friends. Gabriella says, I appreciate so much people who share their growth story in a vulnerable, hopeful and open manner. It feels so good to listen to non-typical paths that turn out well. The thing about it, and grief, Hannah says, there's no time limit on that. Absolutely. And I've experienced that myself. It's the thing is, when you're in that pit, you know, the rug is gone and you don't know where your supports are. It's very, very hard to see a way out, or to imagine you'll ever, because all of them tell you, I'm unlovable, I'm stupid, I'm this, I'm that, and everything is dark. I suppose it's hanging in there to that hope that you come out, and then you look back and you go, wow, I don't know how I did it, but I did it. And then to be able to get to the place, you're very fortunate to say, the best thing that ever happened to you. And of course, you can say that now. Yeah.
And I was quite, you know, with my ex, I was quite, what's the word? Well, no, I was disappointed, I think, more than angry. Very surprised, disappointed. I was angry with her, I suppose, and I was angry with the other party involved. But that's all gone. I think I'm incapable of, see positive things come out. I've realized, I think I'm incapable of hating anybody. I don't think I can genuinely hate anybody. I can think, well, I'll ignore you, but I don't hate them. And that's something I learned about myself. And now I just have no feelings that way at all, you know, towards herself. But
so you freed yourself from that, because if you hold on with bitterness and resentment, then you're still in pain. Lisa says, that happened to me in February 2021, and an event triggered my foundations, and that is where my spiritual awakening in myself came alive. I began to listen to my body and its needs, and eventually started listening to my soul messages. Yeah, sometimes we need some big thing to wake us up. And then Shanti says, if you try to move on before you're ready, the wounds left behind only become infected later on. Time itself is a beautiful healer. And I mean, absolutely. And you talk about not holding on to that anger, because that can really, really eat at you and gnaw at you. And you become defined by your anger.
You do.
And of course, if your ex-wife hadn't done that, I assume you're loyal, you wouldn't have met your present wife.
Exactly. It's I think it was it's kind of the funny thing is, the strange thing is, my mind, you know, I say I had the breakdown and everything, and only weak people in my head. Oh yeah, I'm very sorry, I had a week. It didn't happen to me. I didn't say it in as many words, but I thought, what happened to me can happen to anybody, because you can't stop it, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. I remember the doctor, my very good neighbour, taking me to the doctors, saying, look, he's in a terrible state. And he said, well, you've had this. And he said to me, well, I'm going to sign you off for 2. And I said, well, 2 weeks? He said, no, 2 months. You're going to have 2 months of not, you know. And that, oh dear, and even the doctor thinks, you know, you have to go, well, no, you don't have to, but I don't want it to sound arrogant, or this is going to come out wrong. I don't mean this. I came out of it a better person than the one I was before. Not necessarily, isn't he a great guy? I don't mean like that. I was more whole. Everything was broken and taken, and it was a fresh start. It was a fresh start. Not that I knew it at the time. And the only things I could start doing was when I use the expression "stop feeling sorry for myself." That's probably that sounds a bit dismissive. I don't mean it to, but it's when I was in a position to accept the help that was being offered to me by some of the most unlikely people from my past. They just appeared out of the woodwork, and good friends who really were and still are good friends. And interestingly, some of those people have confided in me with problems they've had, which I had no idea about. And from a healing point of view, I can remember very little about the details of the day-to-day events around that time. Because if you said to me, what date was it when you had this breakdown at work? I can't actually remember. I just remember it happening. And that previous marriage, I can't remember anything about it, which is really weird. I can't remember detailed events from it. It's like my brain has think, okay, well, we've done that. Heal, forget that. It's in there, but you don't need it now. Take the good bits, the stuff you've learned about life, and move on. And I'm very lucky with, I say, my present wife, Julie. She doesn't like it when I say my present wife, my wife. I must stop doing that. Actually, my present wife, well, that's Julie. No, she is, and you're never too old, and she is the love of my life, and she won't like me saying that publicly, but she is. And I'm very lucky. She's very understanding. She puts up with my strange ways sometimes. You have your crosswords, of course you do. It's normal. We're human. But she's tolerant. She tells me to be quiet when I need to be told. Apparently, I talk too much. I don't know, but I talk a lot. But she's well, yeah. She's got, I suppose, another cliche, soulmate. She's it. And I'm actually probably glad that we met at this stage of our lives than say 30 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't have worked, I don't think, because we're different people. We've all got life experiences. Say Julie comes from a large family. She's one of 9 children. I'm one of 2. So my brother's 10 years older than me, and I kind of effectively grew up as an only child, which had its advantages, actually. Some of the things I've made some little notes here. But yeah, it's what am I talking about? I don't know. But if anybody's in that awful dire position, I'm no expert on such matters, but I just say don't give up. And that's easy for me now to sit here and say that because people were saying it to me. But time is a great healer. Another awful cliche, really, but it's true. Things can get better, and they're better than they ever were. So,
absolutely. Amanda Wolfhara says, when I faced my dark night, I faced death and decided that the stripped foundation was the solid ground to rebuild something beautiful, strong, and great on. Absolutely.
yes.
And John Maddox says, thank you for sharing your inspirational story. Respect to you for your amazing recovery.
Oh, thank you. Nice. Yeah, the world is a good place. It's a bit screwed up at the moment, but it's only parts of it. Unfortunately, the parts that impact on our daily lives a lot, if we let it. But things which are generally somewhat disrespectfully called alternative really ought to be mainstream. We're not, as a species, we're not as clever as we like to think.
No.
It's a different argument, isn't it?
This is off topic, but Gabriella says, is Alun aware that he has a podcast voice? Have you already touched on this topic? No, I haven't. So,
gosh, it's funny. The one job thank you very much. The one job I wanted to do when I was a kid, again, I was Mr. Careful. If I could have done any job in the world, I wanted to be on the radio. I like talking. Did you notice I like talking?
No.
I also thought I'd like to be, and I wanted to be a continuity announcer on the radio. And that was so and so. Now we're going to Radio 4 on the BBC or something like that. Podcast. Yes, good idea. Well, yes. I didn't get the name of who said that. Sorry, that was
Gabriella.
Gabriella, it's your fault. If I have a podcast, it's your fault. inflicted on the one. What should I talk about? We'll find something.
I think it's funny, what will you talk about? Shanti says, this video is so relevant for me at the moment. It's been 3 months since I left my job and moved back home, and a year since a horrible end to last relationship. I'm still healing, but I know I'm strong enough, and hearing your story is very reassuring. Thank you. Thank
you for those words. It's great. If I hadn't, that's nice to hear, because if if I hadn't gone through all that shit, putting it bluntly, I wouldn't be able to share this with you. And there is a reason for anything. Is the worst thing. There's two bits of advice: don't take advice from people, and listen to advice from certain people. It sort of contradicts. So if I had any words of advice, is if people you trust are offering you help, try and accept it. Try and accept it. You'll be surprised. I was. People, you say, if there's anything you need, we'll be there. Oh, thanks very much. I wasn't really, but when you went to them, oh, sorry, that's human nature again, I think. So, so many people you think are your friends, or I mean, proper friends, I suppose when a crisis of some sort hits, that's when you find out who your friends are. They're good people. They're still good people, but I think a lot of them don't know how to deal with it. Now, I like to think that if somebody around here, a friend of mine, or somebody I was an acquaintance of, was in that situation, I would be able to lend them some hope with some help with a bit of knowledge and a bit of experience because of what I've been through. I think before, had I had say we were friends and you came to me and so on, and I hadn't gone through it myself, oh well, I know we'll talk about this, and it would have been going through the motions with the best of intentions.
The interesting thing is that having had that experience makes you more empathic and more understanding of people and less frightened of somebody else's pain. Usually in times like this, it's a listening ear. It's about being with you. Yeah. Nobody can undo what happened.
True.
Nobody can take your pain away, but it's actually witnessing it and being with you as you are crying, not struggling, raging, whatever it is, that somebody can actually just be with it because they don't have to do anything. But often I think people think, I need to say something wise and wonderful and reassuring. And of course that never works. So it's just being present to somebody.
Indeed. I actually got to know my big brother. He's 10 years older than me. I actually got to know him to a certain extent through what happened to me. Because he'd had a few experiences of his own as well, but I still am his, as I say, I'm in my 60s and I am still his kid brother.
Yeah.
But then I just remind him he's in his 70s, so that's all right. He still looks younger than me. But I actually had a brotherly chat with him when I was on my own, and I sat there in front of my big brother. He was living on a boat, and I sat in Brighton, and I was sitting on this boat chatting to him, sobbing my heart out with my big brother, and he was my big brother, and that was the first time we kind of connected, and we've told each other things that I wouldn't. There's things about him I know now, and he knows about me that would have gone to the grave with us otherwise. It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's life. It's real life. And Peter, my buddy Peter, saying to me, Alan, what hell, not you? That shook me a bit. It was meant to, and it worked. And that was friendship,
Amanda has a question for you. How do you recover from being Mr. or Mrs. Careful? You talked about being careful, doing the right thing and all of that.
Yeah, you see, how do I recover? Yeah, there's probably still elements of it in there. I probably am naturally risk averse, but generally in life I would, when I left school, I had a standard basic secondary education, left school, so get a job in the bank. So I went for a job in the bank. And I didn't like it. I stayed there for a while. I'll talk a bit later about what else I did, if you like.
Yeah.
And I would be doing this, and I thought, well, that's nice. That's nice and safe and dependable. It's got prospects and a pension and all that sort of. And that's how I used to be. And it again, I can genuinely say it wasn't until what happened to me, because everything I believed in, you get this, you buy this house, and you go. If you're lucky enough to be able to buy a house, it was much easier then than it is now. Or you're going to rent a house, you think, well, I'll have this one because that's nice. And then maybe we go for a bigger one later, and all this sort of thing. It's all planned, and then by the age of this, I'll be doing that. I was never one wanted to be a millionaire or rich or anything like that. I just wanted to be nice, safe, secure, well thought of. That was something I was always brought up to be. Make sure people think well of you. Well, that's fair enough, actually, but I'm not quite so concerned about that anymore. It's me or nothing. It's
I can be a burden if it's not to be well thought of, but it can be a burden if that's your goal, because then you can't really be you, can you?
No, you can't. But just to answer the question there, it wasn't until maybe somebody somewhere was watching me saying, God, he's not going to do it for himself. Let's do this for him. Get his wife to tell him this. It could have been something like that. I don't know. And I was shocked. I thought I was going to die on the spot. The heart was going. I went cold. People have experienced it. And I think, yes, in fact, I think I was told you do go into shock when you get this. You actually do go into shock. And because everything that was planned, and again, in fairness, actually, this would have been my older brother. He said, look what happens when you plan things, Alan, and you want to do this and you want to do that. It doesn't make any difference because it's going to do what it's going to do. So to answer your question, that's how I changed. I was forced to. And then I was very fortunate, as I say, to meet Julie. And it, not a coincidence, I don't think, because I kind of, one day I was going to go to Ireland. I was going to go to Ireland one day. I've done Scotland, I've done Wales because of obvious reasons. I've done this. I'm going to go to Ireland one day. And when I found myself on my own, and I was living near Gatwick Airport at the time, and you could do a £5 day return back in the day before the taxes, day return to Dublin. So I'd leave at 6 and come back at midnight. It was £7.50, £2.50 more, and a longer journey to go into London. So I thought I'd go to Dublin for the day, and I started exploring this country I wanted to come to. And is it coincidental? I don't think it is. When I was back in England and I was working, another very dear friend of mine, Alison, who I worked with, I didn't realize how much of a friend she was. She knew this Irish girl from Galway who was working in London, and she was trying to matchmake us. No, my life's finished. It was that sort of thing. And then I had a day where I set something straight at work, and I thought, that's it. I'm going to ring this girl. And I phoned her up, and we went for fish and chips in a pub in London. There you go. Very romantic. You see, that's me. I'm the old romantic, you see. And it went from there, and that was 2006. That was, and we got married in 2010. And here we are. So, and she's a very lucky girl. No, that's wrong. I'm a very lucky guy. But no, I'm blessed. I'm blessed. And I sort of say to her still sometimes, do you mind if you do what you like? Do what you like. It's up to you. Do what you like. So yeah, how did I get onto that question? Yeah. So all the changes of whatever it is I am now came because of this serious trauma in my life. And it opened my eyes up, because work-wise, I used to be involved with this sort of thing as well, people with problems, and but it only happened to other people. It only happened to other people, not me. Oh God, my life's planned. I'm safe. I'm sensible. But it did happen to me, and it happens to everybody else. Not everybody else, but it happens to a lot of other people who are safe, sensible, planned. You're not in control of that, really. And it's how much support and love you get from other people. It's how much it's whenever you are ready to accept what is coming at you in the way of help and support. That's the only way I can describe it. I'm not qualified in this other than having gone through it. That's how I see it.
Experience is a great teacher. Gabriella says it's about someone to be there with a bag to collect the pieces when breaks into.
That's
so
good.
When people reshape, there's nothing missing. Now that's really interesting, Gabriella.
That is good. I like that. Plus, I'm never going to grow up either. I decided I'm never going to grow up. That helps a little bit, but no, it's you wouldn't wish it on anybody, but a lot of people go through it, and I suppose it's an element of luck of the draw. If there are people there willing to help you and support you when you are ready, and it's only you know when you are ready, you'll get through it, and you will get through it. You will get through it, and you will be a different person, but the elements of you that make you what you are, they'll still be there, but they'll be enhanced, I think.
Yeah.
It's the only way I can put it. So I wish it never happened, but I'm really glad it happened.
Well, this is the thing. Yeah, it's the gift behind the pain.
No pain.
Zurich says, it's Zurich Child's Place, and growing up is so overrated.
Yes. I agree. I write that down in one of my blocks. No, yeah, it's no, there's no blooming cliche coming on. Life's a journey. It is a journey. I don't like cliches, but they're there. Too many of them. I was only going to touch on that, and look at that, we've been talking about it. But it's important for people, I think. If anybody finds themselves in that position, don't give up. That's easy. I'm sitting here saying it. I wouldn't have been able to say this back then. I'd given up, Yeah, I lost a bit of weight though, which is always handy, but it's drastic. Yeah.
Gabriella says you reshaped, Alan, like a transformer or a Pokemon.
Oh yes, yes. That's another good way of putting it. Yes, yeah.
And Jane is asking, what's growing up?
Well, as somebody said before, overrated. That's what it is. It's and it's only and it's only somebody else's. Actually, as I see it, it's only someone else's opinion of what growing up is. We might all be grown up, big kids, you know. As a species, I suppose we, even when we think we don't, and we try not to, we still conform to certain rules. I suppose we have to. That is society. So we all grow. We're all forced to grow up. But I think I have no children, but I think kids these days are forced to grow up far too quickly. You know, childhood's a wonderful thing for most people. It isn't always good for everybody, of course, but it ought to. Childhood ought to be great.
I think if we can, what is it? Adults are really children with bank accounts, you know, but that, and we do act out and behave like children when we get upset or angry, you know, and some have tantrums and some less so. But there's something around engaging with the world with a childlike innocence and a childlike curiosity. And for so many of us, that gets knocked out. So a lot of people will say, you know, I've always seen things, I've always experienced other energies, or I'm a seer, and I was rubbished as a child and I blocked it out and then it came back to me. But there's something around engaging with the world with that childlike innocence and curiosity.
Yeah, it's true. It's seeing other things connected with that. I can tell you about that a bit later on if you want to. If I go right back to childhood, I when we spoke before this, I talked about my mother. I was fortunate with my mum, bless her. She was slightly scared of the world. I think she was scared of the modern world. She was scared of their position in life sometimes, and they worked hard. Mum and Dad worked hard. Mum, she got a job in a local factory a couple of days a week in Hastings, where I was, just to supplement the income. You know, Dad worked really hard, but they just needed. She was very good to me. I effectively grew up as an only child, but she knew all these things which my friends used to say, and I used to be a bit embarrassed at the time. I said, "God, your mum's weird." I said, "Is she?" "Yes, she's mad. She's brilliant. She's weird, but she's brilliant. She does just funny things, you know." I think the funniest one was she cooked spaghetti. I don't know what she cooked spaghetti when everybody else was having sausage and chips or something. I don't know, but she did strange things. She would bring greenery into the house. You know, there'd be decorations going up for Christmas time or whatever, or birthdays. Mum would bring greenery into the house, and you know, I'd say, "Oh, that's nice." And she said, "Well, that's what you do." She said, "You bring nature into the house, you know." And if I was going out, she never drove. She never drove a car, so we walked everywhere. And she would take me down to the park, Hastings Park, really long park. And you know, you'd go down on a Saturday morning and you'd walk in, and she wouldn't say to me, "I'm going to read the paper. I'm going to go." And she wouldn't say, "Go and climb the tree." She said, "Go and get to know that tree." She used to say this to me. She said, "Go and get to know that tree." And I said, "What do you mean go?" She said, "Go and climb the tree, talk to the tree, get to know the tree." And I just thought, you know, my mum's a bit odd here, but never mind, you know. But I did. I'd talk to the tree, you know, and I'd get to know this tree, and then it soon became, "Well, should we go and see your tree?" And that's how it became. So this is how she brought me up. And I used to come. They were in a little semi-detached house in the sort of the edge of Hastings, and I'd come down in the morning if I was going to school or something, and there'd be a blackbird sitting on the kitchen on the side unit next to the toaster. I remember it was next to the toaster. And this blackbird was called Emma. Mum decided the bird was called Emma. And Emma used to come in every morning for some crumbs from the toaster. Say good morning to Emma. "Morning, Emma." Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Wow.
And I never saw, and I don't do it either, I never saw my mother kill a fly, spray a fly. She'd shush them out or put the glass over them and do this. And I still find myself doing that. I'm sitting in a workshop at home here. I do a bit of picture framing. So this is a workshop. It's actually a garage, but it's made into a workshop. I can see a few spiders already, but they live here, so that's fine. they're friends, they're family, if you like. And I'm forever grateful for being brought up in that way.
Beautiful.
And Mum used to see things. She used to see things. I never saw them. She, oh, you will one day. You will, she said. And it was good. Don't tell your dad. Don't tell your father. Don't tell your dad. Dad was a tough working class guy, absolute gent. He wouldn't have understood it, I don't think. And it was, as I said to you before, I think Mum moved from Wales when she was a teenager child, but there was obviously something there. Now, I don't think there was any romantic notions of the idyllic Welsh countryside life, because she was a coal miner's daughter, and I believe it was extremely tough. It would be. But she knew old ways, and I'm not quite sure how. She used to make corn dollies, little small figures.
Yeah.
We'd have them. People would say, the kids would come in, my friends would come in, what's that? And I'd say, oh, it's something that Mum made. It's a something dolly. I didn't know what it was. It's a corn dolly, I think. It's rubbed off on me because I've got, everywhere in this house, I've got green men. I'm a big fan of the green man. So this sort of thing, and Mum was totally in tune with nature, albeit she lived in a town. And she saw things and she'd see things. And I'm forever grateful for that. There's something, and she knew customs as well. I don't think she was aware of the details of myths or stories, but she'd tell me something, and I'd look at it, and she'd say, she said something to me once, and I don't even know if my brother knows this actually, because as I say, we lived 10 years apart, and she would say something to me. She said, well, do you know the salmon? She said fish, because Mum was a vegetarian from the age of 9. There's another story there actually, but she said salmon, very wise fish,
Wow.
I said, what do you mean? She said, they're not just full of vitamins, they're full of knowledge. And she'd say things like this, and I'd say, Mum, you're mad. When you become a teenage boy, she'd always say it in front of my friends. And I can remember one of them said, she's at it again. She's doing it again. No, sorry about this, lads. That sort of thing. But I know what she's talking about now. Now, where she got this from, I don't know. She'd occasionally come up with the odd word. She was the, what's the word? She was the almost stereotypical English lady, really, in the way she lived. But these things would come out. She believed in a God, and I suppose it was the traditional Christian interpretation of that, but she would never go to church. I don't need organized religion to me, she said. I don't need anybody in the way. There's too much, you must do this and you mustn't do that. She said, I talk to them direct.
Lovely.
And I used to think my mum was daft, but actually she's quite wise, really. Bless her. And I only got to know her really since she died in 2012, thinking about things, doing a bit of research, So yes, I'd find that fascinating actually. And she'd paint stones. She'd talk to the stones in the garden. She'd collect stones, right, from the beach, pebbly beach, and she'd talk to them. And she'd have a big one and a small one. She said, "Oh, that's the stone family outside," She was great. Loved animals. She was, so I was told, she was vegetarian from the age of 9. And back in the day, they, I think the doctor sort of said, there's something wrong with this child. And so she tells me, they put her in she called it an institution. I'm not quite sure where, for a couple of days until she started to eat meat. And they checked her out, apparently. And she said, I'm not going to eat it. They said, why not? She said, I don't eat my friends. That's what she said, apparently. I don't eat my friends. They sent her home. We can't do anything with this child. Send her home. And she, as she got older, she was a bit stubborn. When she needed medication, she wouldn't take it. And it twigged on me one day why. She was pregnant with me, and this was 1957, and she was suffering with morning sickness. She went to the doctor, and there's the nurse and the doctor, and they said, well, take this tablet, that'll cure your morning sickness. She said, what is it? And apparently the nurse, she asked the doctor, well, what is it? And the nurse apparently snapped at her and said, don't question the doctor, he knows best, do as you're told. And because I think it was a bit like that then. And she said, well, what is it? I'm not taking it. What is it? You want to cure this, but you will take it. And she said, well, I'm not taking it. And they actually said, well, we're not going to let you go home until you agree to take it. Yeah, this is how it was, apparently. I don't know if this must have been somewhere in London or something. So And she said, okay, I'll take it then. And she took it home and flushed it down the toilet. It turns out it was thalidomide.
Yes.
You know, you knew that was coming, didn't you? So it was
I did, yes.
thalidomide.
And so did somebody else in the comments there.
And I've forever, because I had a couple of kiddies at school with me who had missing limbs and things, didn't know what it was. And there's a lady around, lovely lady, Gwen, lives around here, and she's missing the forearms, you know. And I had a chat with her and told her the story. She said, well, good for your mum. So I was forever grateful for that. But she got to the point when she was towards the end of her life, she wouldn't take stuff that she did need, you know. But she was happy in herself. She never used toothpaste. She always brushed her teeth with salt, always. And she only had 2 teeth missing when she was 88 when she died. But then she got stubborn to the point where she cut herself over here, and she wouldn't. She was 80 something, and she was cutting a hedge apparently, and she sliced into her hand. And I said, you need to go to the doctor with that. I went around and see her, it was all wrapped up in a sterile tea towel. You need to do something with that. And she said, no, it's fine. I'll do it myself. And she was treating it with. I said, what are you treating it with? And I knew straight away it was going to be hydrogen peroxide, you know, the bottle of. And she was pouring it on this thing, and it was fizzing. She's gritting her teeth, and she wrapped it up and blow me down. It healed. Told her she. Yeah, no. So it took me many years to try and persuade her to do something she didn't want to do. She'll put it like that. But yeah, she was tough. There's me all my life thinking, well, my mum knows nothing. She's a bit odd, really. But she knew an awful lot. It's just different, you know. And I still don't know where she got some of the things she knew from. When people were putting pumpkins out, we were putting out a turnip lantern.
That's right.
Yeah. They're different. I know Swede is a turnip in England and turnip is a Swede. They're different ways for Ireland. I know that. And we were doing that. And I just thought, I wish we could have a pumpkin like everybody else, because this was small, you know. I can smell it now burning with a candle in it.
Yeah, I know the smell.
That's what it should be. It should be one of those.
Yes, it should.
Great. I was grateful for that, you know. Bless her.
You know, it strikes me, and somebody says, Leslie says, I love your mum. That your mum sounds really cool. That's from Gabriella.
Oh, she was.
But it strikes me is that she had a very strong sense of herself.
I think she did inside.
And even though she didn't have that, you know, so-called education or whatever, and you said she was kind of afraid of life, but to be able to stand up, you know, to a doctor and say, I am not taking that. You know, because you can easily be in awe of, if you haven't been educated, in awe of somebody with so-called education and authority, that she really, really trusted herself. I mean, a very, very strong woman. Shanti says, it sounds like your mother had the magnificent soul of an ancient cunning folk.
Yeah, yes.
And Carol says, you could be describing my Welsh mother, especially the bit about not going to church and refusing thalidomide. I'm 63. I grew up on the south coast too. My Welsh granny would say, eat salmon and learn the knowledge. Folk thought she was bonkers.
Wow. That's amazing to hear. There's so many similarities there, actually, you know. Wow, that's incredible. Yeah,
so she's some role model, you know, in terms of, you know, you think of, you know, you being careful. And here she was somebody who took risks, who risked not taking the medication.
Correct.
Or, you know, didn't go to the doctor with the cut, treated it herself, and had that strong sense of herself. And she lived till she was 88. That's not a bad age.
Just as an aside, it's not quite, just an interesting thing. I learned something new from Mum as well about dementia, because she had to go into a nursing home, and then she went to a care home, and then had to go to a nursing home for the last couple of years. My mother, I do know now, her mother committed suicide, and Mum found her. That probably had a huge impact on her, I think. Yeah. I forgot the point I was going to make here now. She was, I'll come back to that in a minute. No, I will. I'll come back to that because my mind is all over the place. If there's something I just want to tell you, I'll tell you in a minute. It'll come back in a minute.
You're talking about dementia and your mum and the...
Thank you. See, it's happening to me now. Dementia. It's she remembers when she was at home, and it must have been at the start of the war, I think, and they hadn't obviously gone to London. No, that's not true. They might have been in London. The whole family moved to wherever they were living. It might have been outside London. And her brother, I don't know what happened to her dad. I never did ask. I still don't know. That might have left him in Wales. I'm not sure. So there was an older brother, Ralph, his name was. I never met him. And he was like head of the family, I suppose. And I think he was a school teacher. And my mum remembers the knock at the door. He was called up in the war, and I think he was taken into the RAF or something. And my mum remembers the knock at the door of the house and the postman with a telegram for her mother, my grandmother. And she opened it up, and it was, your son Ralph, blah, 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 missing, believed, killed. And her mother broke down. And all my life, Mum used to say, oh, you'd have loved Ralph, he'd have loved you, you'd have liked Ralph, he'd have done this. And she was sad about Ralph. When my father died in 1990, Mum she got very sad because there was just the two of them. They lived for each other. I miss Ralph, you'd have loved Ralph, and I miss this and that. As the dementia set in, she was scared of so many things. Oh, I don't want to go to hospital, I'm not going to go into a home, which is understandable. But as the dementia set in, they came to the stage whereby she had to go into a home, she had to be cared for. And her mind was, so she was safe, she was warm, she was eating properly. Those things, because she hadn't been eating properly, those had gone. And I used to go and see her occasionally, and I'd say whenever I could, and if she was in a good mood, I'd say to her, how are you? She said, oh, I saw Ralph today. I said, oh yeah, how? Because when I soon learned to stop trying to correct her as well. I thought, no, that's not going to help. But if I said to her, how's Ralph? She said, well, he's dead. You know he's dead. It was, yeah, I couldn't win. But, and then she said, I said, oh yeah, I saw Ralph today. They said, oh yeah, he was asking after you. He'd had a good day at school, and I thought, well, this is, and she was, her last few years, she was happy and fed, contented. She was happy. She didn't go outside the home, I believe, for over a year. But once the dementia had really got a hold of her, bearing in mind she was safe and sound, there were people around her. She, in her head, she was going out every day. I went down to the shops and I saw Mr. So-and-so, and he asked me how you are. These are people from the 1930s or something. And she was happy. And then she ended up in hospital, and I was here. And my brother, he plays the guitar and sings, and he was at her bedside as she passed away, singing one of her favorite songs to her. That's Beautiful. How she died. That's how she slipped away. Yeah. And I got a phone call at 4:20 in the morning to say she'd gone. So there you go. Gone off on a tangent there, but she was some woman, I have to say, and taught me a lot.
It's beautiful. Gabriella says, so when do you feel you'd be open to see stuff like she did?
Well, funny you should say that. Two stories. One answers your question, and one is just an on the way thing. When I was about 9, I thought about this because it's like, sometimes you ask, did you ever have a spiritual experience? I was thinking, I was about 9. I was at Hastings. I was on the miniature railway train. It goes along the seafront, and I was on my own because my big brother, he didn't want to go on it with me, and he said, I'll be over here. And it runs up the seafront and it comes back. And being the horrible little child that I was, I suppose, you're sitting in, there's no health and safety then, of course. Yeah. I was about 8 or 9. And you're in these open carriages like this, and I'm sitting this, and I'm leaning out the side, and I'm doing all this, and this is fantastic. And I was leaning out the side, trailing my hand along the ground like that, because it's what horrible little boys do, I was doing that. And we're coming towards the end of the thing. And I was on my own in this little carriage, which would take about 6 people. I was on my own. And this voice says to me, sit up. And I just ignored it. And then this voice says to me, sit up. And I was pulled up like this. And we went into the tunnel. We went into the tunnel. And I was pulled up. I've never told anybody this before. And I was pulled up this far before clout in the side of the tunnel. And I remember my brother, he spoke to me about it after, because he was waiting for me to come back, and he saw this coming. It wasn't, because I said, did you shout at me? He said, no, I didn't. He said, I was speechless. Don't you dare tell your mum. Don't tell mum, because he'd get into trouble. I remember that. The other story, so I suppose that somebody was looking after me. It was a woman's voice. Somebody was looking after me. Female voice, not one I knew. I was only 9, I think, 8 or 9. I've done quite a few jobs in my time, and one of which, this might shatter a few things, one of which I was a policeman for a while. And this was in Sussex. And one of the things we used to do the shift patterns, and I'll condense this if I can. We used to do the shift pattern nights, earlys, late. So we were on night shift, and we used to do 7 days on and 2 days off. I'm talking probably 88 or 89, 1988.
Mm-hmm.
And on the last night, we'd all gather. This is in the day when they used to put policemen out on the streets, lots of them, I think. And on the end of the 7th night shift, somebody back in the police station would cook a meal in the middle of the night. And you'd take turns to go in there and have a curry at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, half of you would stay out, half of you'd be in, and then you'd swap. The deal as ever being, if anything happens, down and out. You see, you'd leave somebody out. Anyway, we were there, and it was Sunday night, Monday morning. We got a phone call into the station. I'd just finished, and the chap driving to work thought he'd seen a car in a hedgerow on a country road, because we were in the town and there were village bobbies dotted around, but they didn't work the nights, so we would have to respond if something was there. And he said, I'm not sure. He said, I thought a car was in there, and he was getting a touch of the seconds, or maybe I should have stopped. Maybe. So he phoned it in, and I'd finished. I said, well, I'll go and have a look and see. Just might have imagined it. I'll go and have a look. So it took me about 10 minutes to get out there in the car, and I got out there and I saw where it was, and I could see marks into the side. Somebody's got there. And I looked in there, and there were actually two cars in there. And what had happened was they'd obviously collided like that, and they'd gone into the hedgerow, you see, absolutely silent. And I looked in, and I could see two people, one in each car, and they were both gone, I think. You know, not my position to say whether they were, but they were both deceased. That's the best way to put it. I reached in, turned the ignitions off on the two cars, and I called for a bit of assistance. And we're in the middle of nowhere here on a country road between two towns. There are just a few houses, half a mile up, a little bit further. And I'm waiting there, and it was just absolute silence. You know, I'm just standing there on my own. I could hear animals moving around, and I'm waiting for the cavalry to turn up to come out and take over, really. And this gentleman comes up to me and made me jump, and he said, "Do you need any help? Everything all right?" And I said, "Yeah, fine, thank you, sir." I said, "Sorry, I didn't see you coming there." He said, "Oh, I live in a house just up there on the right. I was asleep, and I thought there was something wrong." I said, "Oh no, you're fine. Thanks very much." And I took his details. He wasn't a witness. He hadn't witnessed anything, but he was just living up the road. So I took his details, said, "Thanks very much." And he went back. He just thought, "I'll be off then." And he walked off. Very calm, very unfussed. The cavalry turned up, the rest of the guys, and certain sections took over various things. And I went home. I went back to the station about 3 hours later, because the traffic would be starting to come through. I was then 2 days off, and the duty sergeant says, he said, "You'll have to do a statement when you come back, just to say you went there, you did this, so-and-so took over." I said, "But you go home now." Went back on the Wednesday afternoon, and that was my involvement in it, really. And they said, "Have you got that statement?" I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Oh, we identified the guys in there," and they said, "It's so and so and so and so." And they showed me the names of the fellas on there, and I thought, I know that name. And it was the name I'd put in my police pocketbook from the fellow who said, "I live just up the road there." And it's the same name as the fellow who was in the car going in that direction. And I said, I told no one. And I've actually told only one other person back then, up until this point. I haven't even told Julie. Not the sort of thing you would bandy around working in that organization then, because they think, "Oh, he's not too stable, this boy." And he told me, talking to me, said, "Well, I was asleep," and I thought, I said, I'll be off then. And the conclusion they came to later was that he was coming back. He'd been working at Gatwick Airport, and he was heading home. He'd fallen asleep at the wheel. He drifted, and they collided head on. So I saw that one. And
wow,
I know that stuff. But you know what? It was absolutely reassuring. This fellow wasn't stressed. He was into the next life, clearly. And he was so calm, you know, and he said, "Oh, I live just up there." And that's exactly where he lived, but he was still in the car. That stuck with me, that one. I'm not making that up, I promise you.
No, that's
My notes in my book were not included in my statement because he was nothing to do with because I didn't have to explain this one away, because they said, hang on, you've got the name of the deceased written in your statement. He said he came and talked to you. Well, it wasn't relevant to what had happened. It was just a member of the public who'd come down to help, and I said, no, that's fine, off you go, sort of thing. Thank you very much. So I think I saw that one. Yeah, it's starting. It sends a shiver down my back actually, just thinking about it again now. It was very calm. The whole thing was very calm, But he said he was asleep and he was aware of something had gone, and the conclusion was later down in the inquiry that the driver going that way obviously fell asleep at the wheel. He'd been working a shift at the airport, and the accident ensued, as they said. So there you go.
It's an amazing story, and it's lovely to hear that he died peacefully. Because you imagine, in a road traffic accident, how traumatic that can be, and what's a nice way to go? Your mother had a lovely death, with your brother singing to her.
Yeah.
And so did he. And I think it's, okay, obviously before his time, or maybe it was his right time. Who knows?
Well, I'm not going to tell you, but I can still remember his name, his age, and everything. But he wasn't a young man. He wasn't an old man either. But he wasn't an old man. But he clearly knew nothing about it. And I have to admit, it did get me thinking. The word I used, it spooked me. It did spook me a little bit afterwards, But yeah. So, but the nature of where I was working then, you sort of don't. Yeah, guess what? You didn't say that sort of. And I bet you there are probably others who've gone through similar things. Bound to, because the nature of the work, you're dealing with that sort of thing so often. You're bound to encounter it somewhere. But it did shake me up a little bit, I have to say. So, but as far as I can remember, racking my brain, I've not had anything like that since.
Mm-hmm.
I've got no great gift of sight or anything like that. But yeah.
Gabriella wonders, why do you think he came to talk to you?
I don't know. He was very calm. However these things happen, I don't know how they happen. Whether he was on his way to somewhere else and was confused or whatever, he was very calm, very polite. And it was very direct. He said, and he said to me, he said, Can I help you at all, officer? I said, no. He called me officer. So he knew what he was looking at. It was very strange, but and he looked like, okay, it was dark. It was dark. He was out in the country road, but he looked like a solid, physical human being standing there talking to me. Gave me his details, and off he went. He wandered off. And of course, he disappeared into the dark up the road, because I remember saying to him, be careful on the road if traffic comes down. He was gone, a fast stretch of country road.
Gabriella says maybe he came towards you because he felt you could see him. Maybe,
yeah.
It's interesting. I had a similar experience. I climbed Kilimanjaro when I was in 2006.
Wow.
And I was training on Sliabh na Món, which is the Mountain of the Women, which is in Tipperary.
Yes.
I don't know if you know. Yeah. So my I had a friend of mine who was like my hair. She accompanied me on my training. So her husband was a mountain climber, and he said, if you can climb, not Kilimanjaro, Sliabh na Món 3 times in the one day, up and down 3 times, and you can do that, you will have achieved your fitness and stamina to do Kilimanjaro. So we were doing this every, going up once, doing it once the first every week we went, and just it would increase it by a quarter every week.
Yeah.
And the first time we did it 3 times. So we went up and we were coming down the first time. We were about a quarter of the way from the top, and we met this old man coming who was dressed in kind of old-fashioned clothes, not dressed for the mountain. Like normally people would be wearing your hiking boots or might have worn. Yes. This man was in an old-fashioned suit. And he greeted us and he said he was afraid of getting lost.
Okay.
And I remember saying to him, if you stick to the path, you'll be okay. I remember saying that a few times. And he said, I I don't know why I'm scared, he said, or I'm anxious, he said, because I live down at the bottom of the hill. I again said, and funny, Mary Ellen, he wanted to stay talking, and I was going to stop, and she said, "No, come on, we have to do this 2 more times."
Yeah.
And there's a part of me sorry I didn't stay longer talking to him. Anyway, we went down the hill, and then we were having a cup of tea at the bottom, and we were looking up to see, was he coming down? But where is he? Where is he? Can't see him. And then we went back up to the top again, and the fog had come. So we searched the top, calling him. I thought, oh, I hope he hasn't had an accident. He was worried. Came back down again. And then we were going up a 3rd time, and we met this other farmer, and we said, "Did you see an old man?" And he said, "No, I didn't see anybody." And I said, well, he was a bit worried about losing his way, and he lives at the bottom of the mountain. And he said, "There is no man who lives at the bottom of the mountain." So he started ringing around. He said, "Was there a car there?" I said, "No, I didn't see any car." Ringing around. And nobody knew of any old man living in the area who'd have climbed the mountain.
Wow. And
it was not until after my friend said, "Do you think he might have been from the other world?" And I now think so. But like you said, solid. Nothing wraith-like or anything. We never found it. Yeah.
I think it's wonderful. And it's all very reassuring, I think. You know, should we be surprised? I don't think we should. You know, there has to be more to it than what we're doing at the moment. There has to be.
Yes.
And whatever happens, you know, and the other world, the afterlife, whatever you want to, there has to be. And and I was once I got over the neck, you know, what was that all about? And
part of the mystery. Yeah. And Healing Heart says, "My dad saved my life 5 years after his death. I saw him and felt him. As I squeezed his thumbs, I started to breathe, and my heart restarted with a heavy thump." Like you said, Alan, these things are. So I don't know about the details, but that's fascinating and very reassuring. No, you're not waffling too much. I always appreciate people's comments, you know, when you put them in the chat there, because it adds to the conversation. And then Gabrielle has a question for both of us. Did they look like physical, regular people? Yes. Or did they have a different energy? No, exactly. I thought they were. They
looked exactly like
flesh and blood. Yeah, nothing different about them.
And you hear so many accounts of such similar things that maybe I don't think we should be surprised. I find it reassuring. I'm repeating myself there, but I do. And I bet there's, going back to Mum, I bet there's an awful lot more that she never did tell me. She was very creative. She had a good mind. She could write a good story. She wrote a story. Actually, it just reminded me then, she wrote a story. Just dates it. She wrote a story about a little man called Crumbs. There you go. It's just come to my head, and I've got the I've got it typed up.
You have it. Okay.
Yeah, it was typed. She got it sent away and typed back. We're talking Now, I'd been born, so this is probably in the 60s, and it was a little man who helped Alan find his temper. Because I used to lose my temper a lot as a child, apparently. And the story is me waking up in the morning that I'd been sent to my room or something like that. I was probably 5. The story, I'd been sent to my room and I'm bored and no double glazing. The mist is all on the inside of the window, and apparently in the story I do a little stick man, you know, with a top hat, and he jumps off the window onto the windowsill, and this so dates it. And Alan apparently went, "Crumbs," you know. He said, "I like that name. That's who I shall be." And then there's a story about, "I'm here to help you go and find your temper." And
what a wonderful story.
The little boy called Alan goes off. Yeah, I know. The little boy called Alan goes off on an adventure and talks to a friendly lion or a friendly this or a friendly that, or the man who lives under the tree. "Have you seen Alan's temper?" You know, and all this business. Yeah, so, you know, that's just come back, and I reckon I've got it in a drawer somewhere.
That's something that could be published. That's a wonderful story.
You have to modernize it slightly, I guess, but it's the story of Crumbs. That's what it's called. There you go.
Oh well, there's a task for you.
I've forgotten that. Yeah.
A number of people. It's a number of it. Lexi says, "Eimear, when that has happened to me many times in the UK and Ireland, I'm so happy when it happens."
Yes.
And it was good advice to tell him to stay on the trail. It might have been what the man needed to know. I had spoken to a healer about this, and she said exactly the same thing. Because for some reason I kept saying it. So it's And the little man was like, makes me wonder how often we see people from other realms without realizing it. That's so true. Who knows? When you meet someone, yeah, it's slightly out of the ordinary. It's not until afterwards you know, actually, that was a bit strange. But in the immediate encounter, it's ordinary.
There was something. Yeah, it's true. Actually, you think about it after, you think, well, that wasn't quite. There was something not right there. Then you can only think about it because you can't go and recreate it. You know.
You can't.
But I'm glad these things happen, and yeah, Mum used to, and I know she used to see things. So I have an awful lot. This is my way of saying sorry to her, really, because coming out like this and being public, because I didn't cut her the slack that she should have deserved, really. You know, she was. But then again, I suppose that's parents and kids, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Oh, Mum, stop it! It was always in front of my friends. Now I'd be very proud of it, you know.
Well, I've been through that with my own.
Yeah,
I've been through that with my daughter, who, you know, used to think, because I wear a lot of green, why do you have to go around looking like a leaf? Now she's happy, you know, there's no, she's passed through that, but that awful phase of being embarrassed by your parents, you know.
I know. I do look funny. You talk about green. I look, it's my favorite color. I'm not a green. I'm a big fan of the Green Man. And
yes.
And the legends associated, which is, you know, it's a spirit of nature, isn't it? Really. And I like the greens, you know. And also, I just realised I've got this one, the dancing hares. Hang on, you know, the dancing hare T-shirt.
Oh, lovely. Yes.
Great. You know, I love the hare. The hare's a wonderful creature.
Yes.
But nature, I'm happiest with nature. Trees.
Do you have any hares around you?
Say that again.
Do you have many hares where you live?
Well, funnily enough, yeah, because they say there's a mountain there and there's one there. The place I've seen them all is in the park, the local park here.
Okay.
It's a very small park, and it's surprisingly good. It's got a couple of pitches in the middle of it, but I noticed they built a bat roost house there over in Killaloe. But I noticed there was a sign there saying it's actually the designated site of special wildlife protection or something like that. I forget the wording now. And a couple of times I've seen a hare over there. There's all sorts of wildlife over there. It's a wonderful, fabulous place. I go out and there's a particular oak tree I got to know, and the bats are all around, and it's just full of wildlife, this tree. And I've seen the hare not far from there as well. It's the tree, yeah. The tree. I'm going off topic now, slightly changing the subject here.
Go on.
There was, if that's all right, is that okay? We had a storm here last August of 2020. I think it was called Storm Ellen. And there was a tree there. There was a tree there that it blew down in the storm. Shame, really, a lovely big old tree. And this is one of the things I do, actually. I pick up acorns. I still go conker collecting, you know, the horse chestnuts. And this tree blew down. It was a magnificent thing. And clearly the top half was now dead. Big trunk. There was one stem coming out. The rest had gone. So I took the smallest, tiniest little acorn, the runt of the litter, if you like, off the end of what was the top of the tree, and I popped it in a square pot in the back garden there, and it's about this high now.
Oh, lovely.
So I feel when I go on my walk. My walks are like a walking meditation, actually. That's when I have the earbuds in, a bit of ambient music, something chilling, and I just walk around. So I'm a bit antisocial, I suppose. I don't talk to the people, but I often go when I know it's going to be empty, and I talk to the trees, but I'm keeping this. The top half of the tree is dead now, but I'm keeping the tree updated about its offspring, which is about this big. And there's another one further down. I was underneath it. I think its days might be numbered because it's actually getting a little near a power cable, and I can see they're going to come along with the. So I thought I'll have an acorn from you as well. And there was. This one's about this high now. I was standing under the tree, because I normally go down there and watch the bats. And I was standing under the tree, and there's a few acorns. I'm thinking, well, which one? Come on, give me a clue. Which one should I have? And this blooming acorn hit me on the head. So I'll have that one. Thank you. So I've never heard a tree actually talk to me, but I consider that communication.
Absolutely.
I've never had one fall on my head otherwise. And that's about that high now. So I need to find down the line somewhere, because I've got a garden here around the house, but I can't really plant trees in them to that extent. I'll find somewhere where I can put them and get them established. There's plenty of space around here anyway. So, but yeah, that was that.
I love that idea of going to the, you know, almost dead tree and saying, this is how your offspring is, you know, and it's that that hope, you know, that life continues, and I think it's just beautiful that you have the sensitivity
I
to
keep
do
telling
that.
you, you're not dead. You're not dead. You're alive, but you're 2 miles away. Something, you know, you're down the road, but
Yeah,
you're this big now. You know,
yeah,
and yeah, it's they're great thing. They're great things. You know, and I always hold on to people think they must think I'm bonkers. I do have a little look around. I hold on to 2 of the leaves, you know, from this one stem which is still growing. I imagine I'm quite pleased they haven't cleared it. They're letting it naturally decompose where it is.
beautiful.
And there's so much going on in that
Yes,
remains. So it's not
wildlife.
actually dead. It's just dead in one form. It's full of life. The stems, you know, the trunk. There's a beautiful heart of oak thing. It's full of life.
And then it's life itself, and then there's the insect life, the bird life, the
Yeah.
fungi that it supports.
It is, and it's all there. It's magic. It is magic.
Yeah.
That's what magic is. So yeah, I do, and I talk to the things we've got in the garden here. I talk to them. Why not? You have to do it.
You do, and you know, I don't know if you have any Irish, but the Irish word for druidry and magic is the same. It's druidry.
I did know that only because I think you might have mentioned it,
Yeah.
or somebody mentioned it, and I think that's good. I like that. You know, as I say, I've got a sister-in-law in Kilkenny who teaches Leaving Cert Irish. You know, the secondary, and
Yeah.
I don't speak any other language at all. I don't speak Welsh. I ought to be brave enough and go to Nora and say, "Do you want to teach this old idiot a few words of Irish?" Because it's a beautiful language. Beautiful language.
I'm a bit nerdy about it. I'm not fluent, but I love it.
Language is very important. It identifies. It's such an inherent part. I don't speak a foreign language, but it's such an inherent part of a country's identity, a people's identity.
Yes.
See, the school I went to wasn't great, but there were 2,000 pupils in my school.
Wow.
I know, huge. A secondary modern school, and in those days of the secondary modern school, there was a grammar school. So the kids from the grammar school would go on to further education, as in college or university. My school, they once sent a guy. He made it to university. That made the front page of the local paper. You know,
Wow.
the careers information advice was the army, the navy, something else. You know, and I wasn't interested in any of that. I think my brain's getting tired now. I'm forgetting what I'm talking about here. But yes, I remember asking about the language when we were choosing subjects, and you know, the guys who were teaching us were good guys, but they were from a different era, if you like. And this is when I knew I was never tuned into being properly English. I remember saying to them, I liked history. I've always liked history. I like prehistoric history, ancient history. The only history we were taught was British and economic social history, 1700 to the present day. That was it. That was all that was available. And I wasn't interested in that. I was interested in much older stuff. And what are these stones and all that? But I remember saying to a very, very nice guy, actually doing his best with a bunch of us, when we're choosing the subject, so, well, I'd like to do history. I said, I remember I'd like to do history, and I'd like to do French, because, you know, France was only 40 miles across the channel or whatever. I'd like to do French, because I was another weird kid. I like the French. You know, I was weird at school. Oh, I like the French. They're great. And he'd say, no, you can't do both. You've either got to choose history or the language. And French was the only one. And I remember saying to him, so I said, oh, well, what do you think I should choose then? So he said, go for the history. He said, you don't need a language. They all speak English. That was it. You know, and I never actually did anything about it. You know, I was, okay, because I accepted it. But that was the attitude then. And it goes back to the bad old days, you know. Of course they all speak English, but it's much better if you can go to somebody else's country
and speak their language.
Their own language. Yeah. Even if and of course, but being a lot of people in England don't like to look silly when they're trying to talk a language, you know, and they get embarrassed, you know. And so, no, I won't do that. But there was the
Gabriella says you can still pick up a language, Alan. There are lots of options now to make it friendly. I took up Italian 5 years ago.
Lovely.
On Duolingo, that app on my phone, and I do it every day. I do Irish and Italian every day, and I've been doing it for 5 years.
Now that's interesting, because I downloaded this week. I downloaded this week the Duolingo Irish.
Yep.
I thought I'd have a go. I say it works. It works.
Well, it worked for me, and I thought, well, that's easy because I already had Irish. It's just I had forgotten it, and it brought it back to me. But then I thought I'd have a I'll do another language, Italian. I did French at school, and I can read it, but I learned it through Irish, so I don't have an ear for spoken French, unless an English person speaks it. But so I took up Italian, and I absolutely love it. And I've never had an Italian class, but when I go to Italy, I can speak. Well, I have Italian friends who members of the order.
Yeah.
Well, I started because their English wasn't great at the time.
Sure.
So then we'll speak both English and Italian. You know, whenever we get too tired to focus on the other language, we'll speak our own.
Yes.
Gabriella says, I picked up languages by watching cartoons and films. I've never done that, but that's really interesting because a lot of Europeans do that through TV, and I'm always impressed by mainland Europeans who both speak English or speak a number of languages. I mean, in Ireland we speak both two, and then a third one. And actually, in secondary school, you're meant to have a third language.
Right.
Yeah,
because
it's interesting.
Irish is still the official first language of this country, isn't it? In the Constitution, I believe Irish is still the first official language.
And it's also an official EU language. I
know. It's good, isn't it?
I do know.
I'm a big European as well, so it's great. I think it's excellent. It's I can say Micheál Mar Herthig, who was the commentator in the sport, of course. Somebody, one of the brothers-in-law, he said, "Can you say that?" I said, "What, Micheál Mar Herthig?" Of course I can.
That's wonderful, because it's not easy to say it. And then when you see it spelled for something else.
Such a nice name. It's lovely. Micheál Mar Herthig. Lovely.
Well done. That sounds really good. I'm impressed.
Good on you, Mahogany, and that sort of stuff. Yeah, lovely. Lovely language. I love it. I love it. Gone off topic. Oh, my.
No.
There you
so
go.
Your personal practice then is going to the trees and talking to the bats, and
you probably I like to think of it as a walking meditation. That sounds a bit grandiose.
No,
I put this. I have to have a little something. I have very gentle, these sort of meditation music tracks.
Yes.
I just put those on a loop, and I might walk 4 or 5K around, and so much the better if it's raining. I know that sounds weird, but so much the better if it's raining. And I know she's shaking your head there. And
no, I understand.
I always like the rain, and I'm kind of in a different world then anyway. And I'll be communicating, if it's by sight, by thought, by talking to them, checking there's nobody right behind me, of course, because there he is. That's the one officer, him. He's doing it again. And I love it. And people say, "Did the trees ever talk back to you?" Well, I said, maybe. I think they do, but not in verbal language. They don't speak English.
They speak tree.
They speak tree. Exactly. They speak tree. And it's like people used to say, I've got a dog who's been a little terrier down here. He's been very, very, Ernie. He's been extremely quiet. He's got a very expressive face. And people somebody once said to me, "Isn't it a shame they can't talk?" And I said, "I bet he's looking at me saying exactly the same thing. Isn't it a shame we humans can't talk? You just stand there making those funny noises with your mouths. It's rubbish. Why can't you talk? Your heads don't move. You haven't got a tail." And it's just a different language,
That's right.
That's the other thing I was always taught as a kid. We're not a superior species. We've just made what did she say? We've just made a bigger mess of it than the rest of them have. We've overcomplicated things. And, you could be here, you could be a snail. You're equal.
That's right.
Which is great.
And that big statement from that tree was when the acorn hit you on the head. When you asked, well, which one? Yeah. And it's like, pick me, here I am. And
we got to know each other by then as well, I think, because one or two friends I've told them that, they've gone, "Talk away, Alan." I don't mind. It's great. Yeah. I realise now I was unknowingly brought up from when I was able to be brought up. Yeah, interesting, really. So, I from the order side of things, I actually joined the order around about 2017, I think, 2017, and I started doing the Bardic grade study, and I stopped it. I've got the whole course, the CD and the books, and I actually stopped it because I was approaching it at the time I was approaching it completely the wrong way. I was watching it. I was like, all right, I'm going to learn this. I'm going to learn this, which is not the way to approach it. And I was thinking, right, I'm going to write that down. But just write this down. Try and remember that. And so the time wasn't right for me to do it. But the last few months, I can feel the time is getting right again. And now it's time to start again. And what I'm going to do is start at Samhain.
Lovely.
It's going to be the start. And it's all sitting over there. So I'm sitting in a workshop here, a home workshop for picture framing. And I'm going to start there. I'm going to sit here with the time is right now, because I wasn't really prepared for it then. I don't think. I was keen and I was eager to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But, and then I heard yourself and somebody else saying, you take as long as you like. You'll know when the time is right. And I thought, well, that's all right. That's me, you know. And suddenly it's kind of jumped out at me now. And so I'm going to start it again, right from the scratch, because I'd gone quite a way into it. And I'm thinking, this isn't quite connecting, not quite connecting. I'm enjoying it. I'm learning stuff here. But there's more to it than this. And so I'm going to start right from the very beginning, introductory pack and everything.
I think that's wonderful. And, you know, right through, it's always been, if this seems right at this time, you're invited to do it. And if it doesn't feel right,
yes,
you do it. And that's, I suppose, you know, one of the strengths about the course is that this is self-directed. You're given your course, but that you trust and you listen to yourself. Is this the right time? Is this the particular practicum you want to do? And there's no judgment, and you take the time that's needed. And I've had many guests who have done the Bardic grade 3 times. You know, they just do it again and again and again, or they go through all 3 grades and then they go back to the beginning again. And it's that. And then, of course, each time you look at it, you're looking at it with a fresh eye.
Yes. I feel I'm ready for it now. So if anybody out there, assuming there's still somebody out there, I don't know, if they're thinking, oh, I've left it too long, or I don't feel like, don't worry about it. Do it when you feel ready. And it's part of this whole idea, isn't it? There's no dogma. You've got to do this and you've got to do that. We don't have that. And that's the biggest strength of the whole, one of the biggest strengths of the whole thing, I think.
Yeah.
You do it, as you say, when it feels right for you. And we're all different, of course.
That's right. And Tara says, the worst seemed to happen as my soul learns. Yeah. And then Lisa says she started her Bardic grade last Samhain and is about to finish. And she said it was the perfect time to start.
Great. That's nice to hear. Good. I'm looking forward to it. So, yeah, Samhain. It's a good time.
We're coming to the end of our time. It's been an absolute, we could spend longer talking.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
It's been an absolute joy. And I'm going to end it like, what is your favorite season and what is your favorite ceremony?
Autumn, it's always been autumn for me, and it still is. And talk about never growing up. From when I was as far back as I can remember, living in towns and going out into the country, I can always remember the autumn without knowing it was called autumn. There's something magic happening here. There was the air was, it sounded different. The air smelt different. The place looked different. There was just some magic. And I was 5, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I haven't gone one scrap. It's still there. I still get excited. Most people, autumn. I get excited about it. And I still do. And in the car, I've got a pile of conkers, horse chestnuts, which I went the other day. You know, I'm asking this tree, give me a clue, will you? I don't know. You know, this usual thing I do. And there's one. I'll take that one. Thanks very much. I'll never take them off the tree like I did when I was little. Play conkers, you know. I've got one conker actually, which is 27 years old on a piece of string. It's a champion winner. That's a different story.
That's lovely because we
go on.
You love autumn. Go on.
I was just saying I was an autumn baby. I was born 10th of September, so that's why. And I'm talking about Mum again. She was 2nd of October, so I guess there's the connection. So autumn, and my favourite festival is Samhain. Again, there's just more of the magic, you know, and the more you learn about it. I like them all. Don't get me wrong, I like them all. The spring is great. I think somebody said a week or two back, I like the season I'm in. That's actually it was last week. I like the season I'm in, which I do as well. But if you said Pickman, I'm talking to you about it now. I'm getting a tingle just talking about autumn and Samhain. There you go.
Oh, wonderful. And that's, of course, that's part of the magic as well, and the mystery of having conversations and get tingles. I mean, it's just, it's the joy of it. It's been an absolute joy talking to you, Alun.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. And
I look forward to meeting you sometime.
Likewise, yes, we're not too far away, so I'll hold you to that. Okay. And thanks for everybody else who was listening in, and hang on in there, as they say. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to say goodbye to everybody. So you stay where you are, but I'm just going to take you off screen. So thank you all for being here for another Fireside Chat. I really enjoyed talking to Alun, and judging by your comments, you enjoyed it too. So I'm be back next week with another Fireside Chat. So I look forward to seeing you then. So enjoy the rest of your evening, your morning, your day, and be well. And many blessings for the coming weekend. And let's enjoy the magic of autumn. Well, and of course, it's spring down in the Southern Hemisphere. So all of it's magical. So until next week, slán go fóill.